had a lot of questions last year from people who really want to know how to grow their own fruits in their own home gardens. And we're hoping this is a trend that continues. We also got, of course, a lot of questions about what is wrong with my apple, peach, pear, plum, or raspberry. So we thought we'd get a little bit of a jump on the season by talking to Jody Green about exactly how we should manage those fruit trees and those brambles during the off season so that next year we don't have to deal with protein in our plums. So Jody, you are pretty much the expert in terms of pests of everything, whether it is bed bugs or fruits. What are you going to tell people to start with now that we are December, January, February, March, April, May, and they want those apples in August? Where do we start?
Right. Well, we have to start thinking about this right away, because even though our plants and our trees are dormant right now, we do need to think about our spray schedule for next year. And we need to think about the pests that we found around our trees and in our fruit and try to prevent them from occurring again next year so we can have a good harvest.
So what are some examples and what do people look for, especially if we're talking about novice gardeners?
Right. So if you haven't planted yet, the best thing to do is find a good cultivar that will grow in the weather here, in the conditions you're going to plant the tree. And also you want to have something that may be disease or insect resistant. So I would consult whoever you're buying that tree from. If you are moving into a property or landscape that already has those trees, then right now you want to think about if there's scale or mites from the previous year, you may want to treat with a dormant oil, and that's going to be in before bud break. So that's going to be early before you even think about seeing those pests. So it's going to be like late February, early March, about the time you're going to prune, which is also very important for healthy trees.
So a big piece of doing the management, of course, in any landscape is actually that very word, the management. And what I'm hearing you tell people is you don't just get to plant it. This is a great time to go scout. Can they still take samples to the diagnostic clinic if they need to, or to extension offices if they find some strange thing on an apple twig, as an example?
Absolutely, because identification is going to be the first key, and you want to let us know what kind of plant you're dealing with. So the plant, the insect, or the pest. If it's not an insect, you want to identify that as well, and then the timing. So that will all correspond to a really good management program, because even though spraying is something that may be necessary, there are a multitude of products that you can use. But so after the dormant season, if you don't have mites or scale insects that you want to treat for, the next best thing is to go out after the blooms start and scout at least once a week. Look for pests that are flying around or crawling, anything like that. There are also traps that you can put out there that will help monitor for any moths that are coming in or emerging that have been pupating over the winter.
So I think one of the things that shocks people is they don't see anything.
Right.
And then here comes that creature in the middle of their peach or the middle of their apple. How do they treat for that if they are, and when? Is this again a dormant treatment?
So no, so when they do start scouting and they think if they see any scars on some fruit or some damage like rolling leaves or caterpillars, then they want to treat after the petal blooms have fallen. And this is the best time because you're not going to hurt any pollinators that we really need. And after the blooms drop is when you can treat with a number of products that are available to homeowners from stores. There are synthetic pyrethroids, there is carbaryl, malathion, spinosad for some insects, but you really want to read the label in terms of like timing and application rates, because it's not just a one and done as well. It's something that you'll have to keep up with, and there should be a timing schedule, like every 10 days, for example. And also, you want to make sure you've got those pre-harvest intervals in your mind, because if you're going to harvest, you want to make sure on that label it says that there's enough days in there.
So a multitude of products,
Yes.
which of course makes it difficult if you don't really understand the products, and timing. and management. What if people really are leery of doing any sort of a spray whatsoever? What are your recommendations for at least getting something edible from
Correct.
your fruit trees?
So we call it the integrated pest management approach. So it encompasses a lot of different things. So if you can start trapping, there are going to be some organic options as well. You can do neem oil if you don't want to. I mean, if you want to spray something but not have it be completely, synthetic. But then also the cultural control of cleaning up in the fall is very important, because those fallen fruits or fruits that remain on the trees, the leaves, all that, the debris that may fall down, a lot of pests can overwinter in those places. So you want to clean that up and remove that from the area so that pests won't emerge the following year.
Well, and this has been a fall where cleanup, there's no excuse for not doing
Right.
it, which is a little bit unusual for a season. But if you do that cleanup of the insects and the pests and the diseases you don't want, does that also get rid of habitat for the insects you do want? What's the balancing act on that one?
I would say the cleanup is important in those particular areas. In areas where it's pollinator friendly, maybe outside of where the orchard is, leave those for the pollinators.
All right. And I do know that last year you had a truly amazing peach crop. What did you do? What did you do?
It was just luck, because I did nothing.
All right. And a part of growing anything in the landscape, of course, is whatever Mother Nature decides to do. So you can follow the directions that Jody has suggested. You can do everything right. We can still get no apples or a million peaches. That's just the luck of the draw, and that's one of the things that makes the landscape and gardening and trying to grow your own food so much fun. Thanks, Jody, for talking about what might work, anyway, if you're growing your own fruit trees.